So I'll get I'll get started. My name is Fazal Khan, and I'm the registrar at the college here. I'm also an optician. So we welcome you to the profession. We understand you've been recently licensed up. On the webinar today, we have Ms. Amy Stein, who is our deputy registrar, Ms. Anna Jeremian, who is the manager of registration. We've got Emma Brooks, who is our senior coordinator in registration. We've got Ms. Peggy Dreyer, who is our manager of professional practice and quality assurance. We've got also joining us Ms. Raj Bhatti, who is the manager of our conduct, and Ms. Maria Vigos, who is our coordinator in conduct. So these are hopefully people, well, some of the people that you'll be getting to know a little bit more as you go forward in your profession as an optician. And what we're trying to do here today is basically give you an overview of what the college is, and bring your attention to a couple of the resources that you might want to get to know, as you'll probably be using them on a yearly basis, including navigating the registrant portal, where you'll find all your information about your place of practice, home address, things like that. The portal also has a section on quality assurance, and so there'll be some discussion on how to find things related to your quality assurance requirements, professional credits being uploaded. We'll probably poke around a little bit on the website and show you where other resources could be found. And then we'll move on to talking a bit about your professional obligations that you'll have sort of on a go-forward basis. Again, about quality assurance, as that's a yearly obligation. And we'll talk a little bit about standards, guidelines, and ethics. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit about complaints, hoping to sort of flag for you areas where typically we've gotten some concerns raised by sometimes by patients or other colleagues, and hopefully kind of alert you to those things to make some efforts to make sure that you don't fall into any of those situations yourself. And if time allots, we'll do a little bit of practice advice. But really, we'll end up the session and just double check to see if you have any questions that we might be able to answer. The important thing is you're going to meet everybody here on the team, and you'll know hopefully that if you've got a question about registration after the presentation or quality assurance, you'll know who to contact. So let's get started. We'll move on to the land acknowledgement. So I'll quickly have a land acknowledgement, and then we'll get started. So the College of Opticians operates on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. The college acknowledges and respects that these lands are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, who continue to experience the impact of colonization. The college also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. With the utmost respect and humility, we at the college are grateful to live and work on these lands and are committed to educating ourselves in areas of cultural safety and humility in the delivery of equitable healthcare in Ontario. And with that, let's get started. So I'll talk a little bit about the role of the college. So the college regulates the practice of the profession of opticianry and governs opticians in accordance with legislation, regulations, and bylaws. In addition, we're charged with establishing and the maintenance of standards of practice and quality assurance programs to make sure that you as a professional are maintaining a good quality of care for your patients. And ultimately, as an organization in carrying out our objects or our functions, our primary duty is to serve and protect the public interest. So I'll go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to touch base a little bit on this because a lot of times people are confused as to why are they paying us a fee, but then often aren't getting what they think are services that they feel that they should be receiving. So really, the college is here to serve the public or protect the public. And as an optician, if you want to practice in Ontario, you've got to be registered with the college in order to practice. Your name shows up on the public register, and it gives the status of your registration. If you contrast it with the professional association, you'll probably during school have heard from us and the association. So the college, it's mandatory to be registered with us. With the association, that's a voluntary group, and it's actually your voice. So It's almost like a union or a representative of a group representing your interests. So they too have a membership fee. It's not mandatory. It's up to you, but they're your advocacy group. Our big function on the college is we're actually the patient's advocate, and that's what self-regulation is all about. We've got members of the profession, opticians, on our board, setting the rules and policies that governs our profession. So we're in a sense self-governing, but our duty of care is to the patients, which is a very different duty of care to opticians. So if you're looking for things like professional services, like professional liability insurance, advocacy for any concerns you have, availing yourself of continuing education or educational seminars, or getting delivery of industry news or job postings, that's all from the association. With us, the college, as I said, we protect the public interest by setting and monitoring entry to practice requirements. We receive complaints and we hold discipline hearings if necessary. Hopefully that won't happen in your time in your career. We promote continuing competence. So your educational journey has ended with school, you've written your exam, but it's a lifelong journey. And with any other health professional that you deal with, for instance, your doctor, you would hope that their educational journey hasn't ended. Technology is changing, health is changing. And so with the quality assurance program and your participation on a yearly basis, it ensures that you're up to date on all the changes in the industry so that your patients are best served. And a big thing is that we establish and maintain the standards of practice. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in this presentation. But the standards of practice basically set out what the expectations are from you as a practitioner and what the patient can expect to receive in the form of care, whether it be about eyeglasses, contact lenses, or refraction. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide. So what is a profession? And when I ask what is a profession, in contrast to a job, just a regular career. So a profession typically requires formal education. You've gone through that journey. You've gone probably through to an accredited educational institution like Seneca or Georgian or NATE. You've probably recently written the entry to practice exam. So typical regular jobs will not have an entry to practice exam. There won't be any formal education required. So that's kind of where they separate. There's an obligation that if you want to practice the profession, you've got to register with the regulatory body. Most professions, especially health professions, have a requirement for liability insurance to ensure that if something does go wrong, there is some level of recourse for your patients. Again, most jobs don't have a standards of practice or guidelines or code of ethics and conduct. And typically with just regular jobs, there's no complaints process or disciplinary process. These are all unique to professions, and especially with all 26 health professions that are regulated in Ontario, these requirements are pretty much standard across the board. Next slide, please. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and turn it over to Anna and Emma to talk about registration, because that'll probably be something that you're going to be coming up against every single year as you renew your certificate of registration. And you'll be probably looking for certain resources and things. So Anna, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Fazal. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Anna. I'm the manager of registration here at the college. Today, I'm going to share with you how to navigate the registrant portal, where to find the resources on our website, and also share some information about renewal. The first step is to access your portal. You can do so by clicking the registrant portal tab on our website. Then you will be prompted to enter your username and a password you previously created to log in. Your username is your 4-digit college registration number. If you don't remember your password, click on Forgot My Password link located underneath the login button, and the reset link will be emailed to you. From the home page, you can select from 4 options: About Me, Quality Assurance, Conduct, and Documents and Fees. I will walk you through these steps step by step. The About Me section allows you to keep your personal information up to date and make changes as needed. There are edit buttons, which are circled in red, that allow you to upload a new photo, change your contact information, etc. The lower part of About Me page contains the employment summary section. There are 4 different tabs that contain information about your practice, employment eligibility, liability insurance, and registration in another profession or with another optician regulator. The practice summary part contains your employment information. This section cannot be left blank, even if you're not working at the moment. In which case, you must designate an address. For example, your home address can be used. To update your information, please use the green button at the bottom. You can see the red arrow pointing to it. Under the employment eligibility section, you upload documents that pertain to your eligibility to work in Canada. This only applies to documents that have an expiry date. For example, a work permit, a study permit, or a permanent resident card, or if any changes occurred. For example, you had a permanent resident status and received a Canadian citizenship. The Insurance tab allows you to update your liability insurance information to keep it current. This can be done at any given time and not just during the renewal period. When updating your insurance information, you will be asked to enter the name of the insurance company, your policy or certificate number, the expiry date, the amount, whether it's personal or business insurance, and acknowledge a declaration. You then will be prompted to upload a copy of your insurance. Other registration pertains to being registered in another province or in another profession. This does not include your current registration with the College of Opticians or the professional association. You have a professional obligation to report any conduct-related changes within 30 days of their occurrence. This information is found under the Conduct tab. If you made a payment to the college, a receipt will be generated for you. To obtain your receipt, please click on Documents and Fees tab located on the home screen of your portal and select the Receipts tab. Now, important, you make sure that you select the year in which the payment was made from the drop-down menu, otherwise a receipt will not appear. To maintain your registration, you are required to renew it every year. You have from October 31st to December 31st to renew. A renewal button will be available on your portal that will allow you to access the renewal form and complete the renewal, including making a payment. I'm not going to go into much detail about the renewal since we have almost 6 months ahead of us. I'll just briefly touch upon what you need to have when completing your renewal. So your professional liability insurance information and a copy of your insurance certificate, information about other professional licenses you hold or have held, information about your practice hours in 2023, any changes to your employment eligibility or immigration status, any new post-secondary education completed in 2023. Now, note here that you're not required to report on any education that you were completed prior to that, and any conduct-related information which has not previously reported to the college. Again, if this has been reported in the past, you don't have to report it again. Now, a lot of pertinent information is located on our website. If you are looking for a form, for example, you need a replacement badge or like a replacement decal, you need a letter of standing. This is all can be found under forms on the website. You see the top part, the forms are circled in red, and then under miscellaneous change forms are also circled in red. Also, from time to time, you may want to refer to policies that govern your practice. Again, this is available on the website. You click on the policies tab at the top of the top portion of the website, and it will take you to registration policies. Information is also available in French. For that, you select en français tab at the top of the top part of the website, and it will take you to the services in French section. And we have a number of forms and policies also translated into French that are available on the website. That's it for me. And with that, I pass it on to professional obligations.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Peggy. I am the Manager of Professional Practice and Quality Assurance at the college. I also am one of the practice advisors. I'm a registered optician and have been practicing for over 20 years. I'm going to review today mostly your requirements for your professional portfolio. So every year, an optician is required to complete a professional portfolio. Next slide, please, Emma. Is required to participate in the quality assurance program, which consists of a professional portfolio, the competency review and evaluation process, and when required, a peer and practice assessment. Next slide. The professional portfolio consists of a self-assessment, professional development consisting of 16 continuing education hours, and a jurisprudence module. The accredited or the continuing education hours are broken down into 4 categories: 4 accredited eyeglass hours, 4 accredited contact lens hours, 4 accredited professional growth hours, and 4 non-accredited self-directed hours. As a newly registered optician, your requirements may vary depending on when in the year you become registered. So if you became registered right between January and March, then you would be required to complete the full continuing education requirements. Between April and June, 75%, between July and September, 50%, and October through December, 25%. Jurisprudence is a tool that has been developed as an educational resource. The purpose of the modules is to help registrants acquire knowledge about the laws, standards, and guidelines that affect opticianry in Ontario. There are currently 5 chapters available. All are accredited as professional growth activities and can be completed once every 3 years. Chapter 1, Professional Boundaries and Sexual Abuse Prevention, is the only mandatory chapter at this time. It must be completed within 12 months of registration and then once every 3 years. Next slide, please. To complete your professional portfolio, it is done online through your registrant portal. So you just click on the Quality Assurance tab, and then you will see, once you're there, a brief description of what your professional portfolio is, and then a tab for each section of it. To complete your self-assessment, click on the competency self-assessment. Ensure that you have chosen the correct year, so that the year for this year is 2023. If you complete it in January of the following year, it will automatically default to the current year, so you have to go back and put 2023. However, we do recommend you complete it at the beginning of the year. Next slide. Your accredited hours are reported and uploaded under the Accredited Hours tab. To report, you just click at the bottom, Add New Course, and then a menu will pop up where you put in the course number and can upload your certificate. You must upload proof of completion certificates for all accredited hours. For the non-accredited self-directed hours section, again, ensure that your year is on the current year, add your activity, ensure that you include a brief summary of the new knowledge or skill that you gained by completing this activity. It should not be a brief 2 to 3 word sentence. It should be a small paragraph of what you've learned and how it has affected your practice. Next slide. To complete the jurisprudence, you can just simply click on the jurisprudence tab and then go to jurisprudence tool. Once you're in that jurisprudence tool, next slide, Emma, you will see the test dashboard. It will show you all the chapters that are available. It will also show you whether it is incomplete or retest is required or any previous attempt that you've made. So if, for instance, you completed Jurisprudence Chapter 1 in January of this year, it would show complete. And then in 3 years, it would show retest required. When you scroll down, it will show your last date of completion so that you know when each one is available to retake. Sorry. As part of the quality assurance program is the competency review and evaluation process. This is a mechanism for the Quality Assurance Committee to monitor registrants' participation and compliance with the quality assurance program. At the beginning of the year, registrants are randomly selected to have a fulsome review of the previous year's professional portfolio. So that's essentially an audit of all the information that is in your portal. Beginning in 2024, the college will also select a number of opticians at random to undergo a peer and practice assessment. A peer and practice assessment is an in-depth assessment comprised of a behavior-based interview, a chart review, and a premise inspection. And you will find all your continuing education quality assurance program information on the tab under registrants, and then just click on quality assurance program, continuing education resources, or jurisprudence. The continuing education resource section has a list of all the accredited continuing education activities, including their expiry date. Next slide. Thank you.
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. So I will talk a little bit about regulations and guidelines, all that fun stuff. So Emma, if I can get the next slide, please. So standards of practice are sort of the one thing that everyone talks about in the profession. And they're looking at the standards of practice, and they get revised every now and then. And they speak about things like code of ethics. They talk about eyeglass dispensing, contact lens dispensing, things like delegation. So that's all covered in the standards of practice. So that's probably going to be one of your most accessed documents that you'll look at. It's also sort of that bar in this. So the standards are must-dos. You have to adhere to these things. Now, we've tried to keep them narrow as far as how many there are. So it's not a very big document, but it's written very broadly, and it relies very much on your professional judgment. So rather than tell you step by step how to do everything, we basically have an expectation that you're going to act as a professional and you're going to dispense safely. So the standards will sort of outline the very minimum that we expect from you. And if you don't meet those, that would be considered a breach, which would be considered professional misconduct. So for instance, fitting eyeglasses, we expect you to take an adequate patient history that includes certain things. If you were to fall below it, that would be a breach of your obligation. Now, with the standard, there's something called guidelines. So the standards are must-dos. The guidelines are nice-to-dos, or you should do it, but it wouldn't be considered misconduct if you didn't. So essentially, the guidelines support the standards. They explain and interpret the standards and talk about best practices. So, a standard of practice is a line that you shouldn't cross. A guideline is supposed to be there to help you. And then finally, code of ethics talks a lot about the higher level things as far as ethical conduct, how you conduct yourself as a professional, to make sure that there's no disrepute brought to the profession and that the public sees you as a trustworthy professional. A breach of the code of conduct would be considered professional misconduct. So if I can get the next slide. So the code of ethics, there's some very high level basic principles: respect for others, including your colleagues and your patients, putting your patients' needs first. So we are all working for somebody, and there are requirements of our job that we probably in this profession, for instance, are dispensing eyewear, selling eyewear, and that there's probably competing interests like your sales quotas or commissions. But the expectation is from the college that you put those needs second, and you put what your patient needs as first priority. So while the patient might say to you, I've got all kinds of money from my insurance, so you recommend what you recommend, there's still an expectation that you're going to recommend what they need. and not exploit the power imbalance where they're looking at you as the sort of the expert on this field, the professional. Just like when we go to a doctor and we defer to them, if the doctor says, I recommend this, this, and this, you typically listen to what your healthcare practitioner is saying. And it's because they have more knowledge in this area than you do, and you are deferring to them. Same thing here in opticianry. Patients are deferring to you because you are the expert here. So it's important that you don't take advantage of that position and recommend things that are of your interest or your company's interest rather than their interest first. The other thing is also looking inwards and recognizing your own limitations. Just because you're licensed to fit eyeglasses, contact lenses, and you can refract under delegation, doesn't mean you should be necessarily performing those areas. For instance, while you're allowed to fit contact lenses, that includes rigid lenses, scleral lenses. But if you don't have any comfort in fitting those lenses, don't go into it. Those are specialty products. Wait till you have got experience. Maybe you mentor under somebody. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So always assess your abilities. And if you think that you don't have the ability to do something, pass them on to a colleague who does. And a huge part of things about ethics is keeping patient information confidential. That is a tenet of all health professions. Health information is a very personal thing, and it is imperative that you keep a patient's information private, that you're not sharing it as content for any type of conversations or gossip, things like that. So confidentiality is a must. Emma, if I get you the next slide. Boundaries is another huge thing. You've got to maintain appropriate boundaries with patients and former patients. So full stop, and this is actually across all health professions, an optician is prohibited from engaging in any sexual relationships with patients. And an optician there's some professions that have an exemption to this, but in opticianry, an optician is prohibited from treating their spouse. So boundaries is basically business is business, non-professional or personal is separate. If you think you want to pursue a relationship with somebody that's a patient of yours, you've actually got to discontinue service to them, pass them on to somebody else, and a time period of at least 1 year has got to transpire before you can engage in a personal relationship with a former patient. So this is very important. Not misusing personal information, such as, for instance, you hit it off dispensing glasses to them. Texting and following up and saying, how's your glasses is one thing, but to ask them out for a coffee or a date is a different thing. So there is a hard line there. There's an expectation that your relationship with your patients is strictly professional. And then we'll go on to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about complaints, just to kind of flag for you, the nature of complaints that we receive and how they're dealt with. So we'll take a look at the next chart. I'm actually going to go past this slide, and we'll just jump right into it. So this is complaint trends in 2021. They change a little bit from year to year, but as you can see from this pie chart, the majority of them come around professional conduct and behavior. That typically falls into communication issues, friction that might be happening in the patient and practitioner relationship. The next piece of the pie, which is not huge, is unsatisfactory lenses, which kind of shows that for the most part, everyone's dispensing products that are appropriate. But there are some that are falling maybe beyond tolerance, and they should have been checked again for performance before being dispensed to the patient. A big chunk of the pie chart there is fraud, billing and fraud. This is about insurance. So third-party insurance, where possibly opticians are dispensing eyewear that is non-prescription, but billing it as prescription so that it fits under the patient's health insurance plan. And this is often at the behest of the patient asking if it can be done. Even though the patient's asking, that is a line that you shouldn't be crossing. You cannot fraudulently bill something that's not prescription and represented as prescription. And while it's tapering off a little bit year to year, insurance companies are looking at these these type of trends, and the college is quite concerned also. So we've received complaints at the college about these type of things happening. The insurance companies have concluded their investigation, taken appropriate action on their end, and then turn it over to us to look at the professionalism of the optician involved in these things. And these type of things could or will result in action being taken. And I'll talk about that in the next slide in just a moment. Advertising makes up a small chunk of this, whether it be misrepresenting something, whether it be the performance or oneself skills. It could be a lack of clarity. And so it also comes back to communication. It's very important to communicate to the patient what type of the service they're about to get before giving it to them, and being very transparent, including breaking down the cost and what this will cost the patient. Sometimes the patient is surprised just how expensive something became. And so rather than result in a complaint at the college, it's better to be very straightforward with your patients as to what they're getting into. COVID-19 protocols is kind of diminishing here, so I'm not going to really touch base on that. If I can get the next slide, please. So drilling down, as I said, professional conduct and behavior, being rude or argumentative or using unprofessional language, not honoring warranties or refund policies, or failing to just keep up with your communications, whether it be returning calls or emails. That was a big thing during the pandemic when stores were shut down. But not honoring warranties or refund policies speaks a lot to the transparency of what you're about to provide. Now, I do want to flag the college regulates people, not businesses. So if we get a complaint that's business related, for instance, I don't, yes, they told me it's no refunds ahead, they were transparent, but the store is not giving me a refund and I changed my mind, I don't like my pink color frames, I wanted purple. We don't get into that. That is a business matter, and we leave that strictly to the business and to the patient. But if it's something to do with how they were treated by the optician and it was deemed unprofessional, that we will get into. Unsatisfactory lenses, the highest one is typically lenses that don't match the prescription, and this could be really avoided by just taking time to double check what comes from the lab. Sometimes it's failure to properly fit the glasses. We have gotten a lot of complaints at the college lately around patients asking for their PD measurement. They may be going online, we can't stop them, and it's not our job to stop them, nor is it yours. But if you made glasses for them and they ask you for their PD information, that's part of their health information. You are obliged to provide that information to them. So you can't say, well, I'm protecting you from the internet, you can't have your PD, or, I took the PD, it's part of my business model, you can't go anywhere with it. Once you take that measurement, it is their health information and you are obliged to provide it if they request it. I can get the next slide, please. We already talked a lot about the insurance part and the advertising, so I'll skip over this and we'll go to the next pie chart. So resolution of complaints. So we've received the complaint. How do we deal with it? So there's different ways that the college can take action or actually no action. So for instance, there's a big chunk there, 26%, that says take no action. So sometimes it's a business related matter where, as I said, they want an exchange or a refund. That's not something that we get into. Sometimes the complaint results in giving the optician being given advice or recommendations. Sometimes it's a caution. Sometimes it's a SCRP. SCRP stands for Specified Continuing Education and Remediation Program. So, for instance, if we found a deficiency with your bookkeeping or your record keeping, we may order a course that you take. When you get a caution or a SCRP, these things will appear on your public register profile. So if somebody Googles you or checks your profile out, they will see if these type of actions were taken against you, even though it didn't go all the way to discipline. These type of things could occur. So it does form part of your profile that the patients are able to see. An undertaking is something where you put in writing that you will take on something or not do something further. So it's a sort of a mutual agreement. And then there's a small chunk that gets referred to discipline. So if something is really egregious, the complaint is really bad, it could go to a panel of your peers and a few public members. It's a very formal setting. Typically, there's lawyers involved, and it could result in your license being suspended for a period of time, costs of the whole panel being awarded to the college, which you would have to reimburse. So it's a pretty stressful situation. It doesn't happen often, I'm glad to say, but it's reserved for some of the more egregious situations. So Emma, if I can get the next slide. So I think, you know what, we won't get into practice advice. We typically do this at our continuing education seminars. Maybe we'll drop the screen share and just check on the chat panel to see if there's any questions for our team. So I'm just going to pull up the chat. You can use the Q&A or the chat. So I'm not seeing much so far. Okay. Well, I just, this recording is going to be made available on our website. So, you know, if you have a friend who wasn't able to attend or you wanted to replay a certain section, keep an eye out for that. Oh, we got something here. Can you repeat the peer and practice assessment, please? Peggy, can I get you to speak to that?
Yes, for sure. So peer and practice assessment is an either on-site or virtual assessment. It consists of a behavior-based interview, which will review some of the competence related to core competencies, such as charting, or record keeping, and various things like that, as well as questions related to eyeglasses and contact lenses. If you are required to participate in a peer and practice assessment, you are only required to have the interview based on where you practice. So if you don't dispense contact lenses, then you wouldn't be asked anything related to contact lens questions. And then from once the peer and practice assessment is done, the assessor will complete a report, which the Quality Assurance Committee reviews, just to ensure that you're meeting all the competencies and practicing safely and without any issues. Should they determine that they've found an issue, then it's communicated with you and you have an opportunity to respond or explain before anything further is completed with respect to it. It is peer and practice assessments there'll be a random selection beginning in 2024, and they can also be the result of a registrant not completing or not fully completing their professional portfolio. So the Quality Assurance Committee may order them based on that.
Okay. Any other questions? That was a great question. Okay. Well, hopefully you know who you can speak to at the office. If it's registration related, you know, speak to Anna's department. If it's practice advice or quality assurance, speak to Peggy's department. If it's a question about complaints and conduct, speak to Raj's department. All the team is here to help you. We want to help you, even though we represent the public, and I've probably hit it over the head so many times that the association is your professional voice. We as your regulator want to make sure that you're successful in your professional obligations and that you become the best practitioner possible. So we are here to help. We've, you know, set up appointments one-on-one to help people fill in their portfolio and things like that. The team is very receptive. So please do reach out. You can always, you know, do a general email to info or mail@collegeofopticians.ca. Each of the departments has their own email address. You know, registration at College of Opticians, QA at College of Opticians. Raj, is there a conduct at collegeofopticians.ca?
It's complaints at college.
Complaints. Perfect. So you'll be able to reach out to any of us. You know, we're here Monday to Friday, whether in office or virtual. So please do reach out. We also typically come out to trade shows. So if you're coming to a continuing education show, come out and say hi to us. We'd love to see you and meet you in person and take any questions you have at that time too. So with that, we will take leave. I'm glad that a number of you attended. Welcome to the profession. It is a great one. We wish you a lot of success in your future, and we are here to help when you need it. Okay, thanks, team.